Wish you were one of those influencers with raving fans who binge on your every word, consume all your content, buy everything you have to sell, and demand even more? Then stay tuned while Authority Magazine columnist and BuzzFeed contributor Tracy Hazard shares strategies, tips, and tactics from top videocasters, podcasters, authors, and social influencers on creating that bingeable factor. Now, let's join Tracy as she explores how to rise above all the digital noise with the binge factor.
Hey everyone, welcome to Feed Your Brand Center of Influence, and I have a really cool influencer to talk with you today, Jordan Paris. Jordan is a 21-year-old author, web developer, podcast host, and former college athlete seen in Men's Health, Yahoo Finance, and NASDAQ as the beacon of light for inspiring people from all walks of life. Jordan's podcast, Growth Mindset University, was ranked number 3 in iTunes training category, and is consistently in the top 10. On the show, he interviews young up-and-comers and the most successful people like Kevin Rudolph, David Meltzer, Mark Manson, Rachel Starr, and Dan Locke. Jordan is also the founder of the WordPress Rocketeer. Going to want to talk about that, where he focuses on developing engaging websites to launch his clients' dreams. And he approaches life and business as simple yet powerful mantra: don't make a living, design a life. I love designing life. I love that. With this creator's mentality, Jordan has been able to produce outstanding results for himself and challenge others to rise above circumstances and take control of their lives. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Tracy.
So I'm super excited to talk with you about the success that you've had, because we don't get a lot of, I'm going to call it, young podcasters. So there's a gap. There's kind of a gap of young entrepreneurs not taking to podcasts, but they're huge podcast listeners. So why is it that you decided a podcast was for you?
People ask me this question all the time. Probably one of the most asked questions. And I don't have an answer. There's no sexy story behind it. There was never a moment. I cannot recall for the life of me when that moment that I decided to start the show, or even why I decided to start the show. All I know is this, Tracy, is that episode number 1 came out on April 17th of 2018. That's all I
just
know.
Happened.
It's like I was just, it's like I was in a coma or something. I was still functioning.
You woke and you were a podcaster.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. So that's the answer to your question.
Well, what are some of the most interesting or funny things that have happened to you since you started podcasting?
The most interesting or funny things. Just the whole journey has been really cool. Just whenever I'm reading a book, I end up reaching out to that author. Even if I'm like listening to music, something got me on. I was listening to Kevin Rudolph, and I was like listening to Let It Rock and all those songs. And I was like, wow, I forgot about him, and I was really feeling it, and it was making me feel really good. And I was in the pool and just had my Bluetooth headphones on in the pool, and I was loving it. And I was like, I should reach out to him. So I got up and did a little bit of searching, not a ton. It was incredibly easy to find his email, and had a response within an hour and a half. And he's a real cool guy, and we'll be in Miami next week getting together. So
wow.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good, important, point that you're making, that most people just don't reach out, and having the podcast gives you quite a bit of reach, gives you quite a bit of authority to be able to ask, because you're giving them publicity. Who doesn't want that?
That's right. That's exactly what you're giving them. You have something to offer them. It's much different than as to, hey man, let's talk on the phone. Let's connect.
They're going to think you're selling them something, right?
That, and it's like, there's nothing really of value for you to offer them. So podcast is a great way to, reach, it's a great excuse to connect with and be friends with the most successful people on out there.
Build a relationship, right? Absolutely.
Right.
So now I'm sure your setup and getting started podcasting didn't go smoothly, especially if you can't remember how you even got started. So what were some of the big mistakes you made early on?
Yeah, I always wish that I knew what I was doing in the beginning. I like I now, knowing that there's like this small window for you to get in new and noteworthy on Apple Podcasts, I had no idea about that until months later when it was far too late. It's like, what am I going to do? Start another podcast?
Well,
No, I'm not.
you can still be noteworthy.
Because I
So
can still be noteworthy, but
if you don't have to be new, you can still be noteworthy.
you
So
can
you
still,
should miss that
yeah.
opportunity.
Well, yes, of course, but there's so many things. I was, in the beginning, I was on Anchor, of all things, and eventually switched to something far better now, and I use Simplecast currently. I think we talked about that before. I know you have a brilliant hosting platform as well, and I just even the technology. It took me. I've got this box below me of all my in-person interview equipment, and it took me about 10 months to figure out what technology to use. It's just, it's crazy how we have augmented
Like
reality.
trial and error, right?
Right. We've got augmented reality, virtual reality, all this stuff like that's super advanced, but audio equipment I feel like is stuck in the 90s. Like this Zoom H5 is like a really expensive piece of equipment, but like it looks like it's from it looks like archaic. It
It
looks
does look archaic, right? It hasn't
yeah.
changed. That's what we found too. So Tom just did a whole on the Feed Your Brand podcast. You'll be hearing it in the next couple of weeks. So probably before yours airs or right around the time that yours airs, he did a whole recap of all the equipment out there, the microphones, mostly the kind of microphones that are like, like this, where you're just handhelds, or on a mount that you would have in your office, not necessarily ones you take on the road. Because you might still use these types of mics, but you plug them into the Zoom devices. So,
Absolutely.
but he was reviewing them, and the real issue is that what we found was that the equipment was designed for studio use. And when you don't have a studio, you really overpay for what you're getting for what doesn't work, because it picks up so much ambient sound, because it's really creating rich sound in a studio, and it's not serving you well. So actually what we found was the more expensive equipment, the worse the outcome in a general environment.
That makes so much sense.
Now it makes sense,
actually.
right? And you're
Yeah.
like, so when you use those same microphones, you think you need better, and you're out in the field, you actually are making it worse for yourself. And so that's where you're making more work for you on the editing side, is really what happens, because that, as you know, when you start going, it's
Right.
the resulting sound file that's the problem, not the recording of it. That none of that is noticeable in the field, but
Right. So
except that
I
you're
guess
carrying around this ugly looking device.
yeah, and a lot of like adapters and all sorts of stuff. And I guess it makes sense. I mean, because the microphones I use are $29 Audio Technica lav mics on there, and I cannot believe how good they are. Oh,
Right. The
like
cheaper, the better.
holy crap, they are unreal. I just have so much good to say about them. Now they have a 20-foot long cord, and that could be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But it's and I can't tell you the exact model. If you just go to I have a blog post up with all the equipment that I use, jordanparis.com.
We'll link to that in the blog post here.
/PU. Yeah. Cool.
We'll make sure you get to it. See, yeah, but that's exactly the same issue. And so that's why Tom and I invented a new microphone that's going to come out soon. It's going to come out this summer on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, because I was like, it was the cords and cables and missing interviews because the equipment failed that drove me to say, we have to have a better solution. So yeah, so these equipment fails are definitely early on big mistakes that happen, and lessons that you learn.
Yeah.
But,
so yesterday, I got it. We'll put a bow on this. We'll finish this.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But yesterday, you should have seen my setup. I was a one-man crew yesterday, giving a lecture at a university, and I love this iPhone XS Max for video, especially when like I don't want to deal with more complicated stuff, but like I had a USB camera adapter in here plugged into this iPhone, which then it like that camera adapter was like going to my Zoom H5, and the iPhone was on a tripod, and then of course the 20-foot wires coming out of my Zoom H5 for my Audio Technica microphone. And it was just this long chain of connecting wires, and it was ridiculous. But the reason I did that is because like now I had to do zero post-production and matching of like the audio and video. It just went right to my phone, and it's all like it's perfect. And it just but it was pretty wild, yeah, and complicated and stressful yesterday.
And you have to figure out, yeah. So that's what I think, part of the reason why we started our business the way that we did was because there were such tech challenges to doing it that it kept people from doing what was really great, like inviting great guests and just getting into the content and doing what you do best. So let's talk a little bit about that. What is it that what drove you to build this podcast, and is it building your business in the way that you expected?
Well, absolutely. Because I mean, right now I've got this new sort of thing going on where you and I had talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's a full service marketing agency for serious podcasters, and I'm still building it, but I have, people reach out to me all day on LinkedIn because that's where my presence is. That's really where it happens for me. And I post these videos and they get tens of thousands of views. I post promo, like short little snippets of the podcast, and people asking me all day. I'll wake up with 85 messages. Jordan, how did you create this video? Jordan, how did you create that video? Jordan, what are you using? Like, Jordan, how'd you do this? How'd you do that in the beginning? What about this graphic? And so now
they want to know all about the how-to. I love it.
Right. Exactly. But even when I tell them how to do it, I mean, they can't do it 1/10 as good as we do it. So
yeah,
right.
that's a huge problem. That's kind of why I've always been reluctant about teaching. I'm actually doing a boot camp on Friday, and I've been pushed into it because so many people just were like, we just really need a low cost. And I was like, but I'm going to teach you and then you're not going to be successful. So I finally figured out a way where I can make them do it while they're in the boot camp with me. Cause then I know I can make sure they're successful. Cause I didn't want them to come away and not be able to do it.
Right. So pretty much. Yeah. So I'm setting up this marketing agency for serious podcasters. And, what I had mentioned earlier with my lead magnet, which is Podcast University, jordanparis.com/PU. And it yes, it's a blog post and it's completely free, but you have to put in your email. And it pretty much what it does is it solves for all the unknown variables of podcasting, like literally everything. And and people that like a lot of times, sometimes I'll post, for example, the time to start a podcast is now or never. Next line. There are over 700,000 podcasts as of 2019, ... See more, which is what happens on LinkedIn. You have to click see more to see the rest of the post. And it's a video of me talking about the statistics of podcasting. And it gets 19,000 views. And you know what? There's a call to action at the end of it. If you want to start your own podcast, reach out to me and I'll help you. I got so many like leads from a video that got 19,000 views, like all about podcasts. Like I sent them to Podcast University. And so at every single turn, I am creating customers. I haven't even started yet. And I've got 3 people now, like waiting to pay me big money. So it's exciting. It's not done yet. We're, building out right now, hiring, and, I know all about it. I'm preaching to the choir here. So
that's okay. Yeah, absolutely. The more
it has absolutely changed. It has absolutely changed my life. My friend was saying to me last night, Jordan, I am literally jealous as to how easy it's going to be for you to market this. It's just going to be so natural, and how easy it's going to be for you to get clients. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Right. Absolutely. And so, that's one of the benefits of being, early in on it. And because, you were saying 700,000, but the reality is that there are only about 300,000 that are active.
That's right.
And so we're estimating 300 to 500. I think it's on the low side based on the numbers I've seen. So, if you've only got that many active, then they're really looking for people who have answers. So let's do some lessons then. So in your experience becoming a center of influence in podcasting, what are some of the best ways to book great guests?
This This is a loaded question. This was
It is.
a part of my a huge chunk of my 55-minute lecture yesterday was like on this.
Right, you could go on and on, right? Because
Yeah.
it's such a big topic. Well, give us a good soundbite here. Give us something that is one of your favorite ways to book a great guest.
Yeah, reach out to, I mean, okay, before you reach out to them, it's called digging the well before you're thirsty. Build rapport with them before you go in for any sort of ask. The ask being, being thirsty, and building the rapport being digging the well. So dig the well before you're thirsty, and I mean, comment on all of their stuff on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Even if they're on LinkedIn, I mean, that's my favorite tool. If they're on LinkedIn, and they're relatively active on LinkedIn, then you've got it made, and it's really, really easy to talk to them. And
I love LinkedIn too. It's always been my number one platform.
Number one, yeah. So start replying to your comments, liking your comments, even if they don't. Fine, send them a message though. Just without even going in for an ask, without asking them to like get on the phone, don't ask them for anything, and don't gush either.
Yeah.
Don't gush. I mean,
being a fanboy, fangirl, that's not going to help you.
if you're a fan, then they're going to, I mean, the natural inclination, I mean, needy is creepy. I mean, even relationships, if someone's needy, our natural inclination is to, swatch it away like a fly, push you away or run away. So, you can engage them with a light compliment and express how grateful that you are to be connected with them. Gosh, I mean, it's really relatively simple, but then I have this email template, and I hate to say the word template. I used to get people on LinkedIn. That's why I'm talking about LinkedIn. And now that I've kind of like gravitated away, and like, I really want, like, I am going for rock star guests now. Like now I'm like getting away from, I'm migrating away from LinkedIn. I have this template. I hate to call it a template because it's really not, because it's highly personalized, and it goes, I'm so like hesitant to share it, but if you look up Tim Ferriss, Alex Benayan email template, you will find pretty much a rough outline of it somewhere in the Google searches there. And of course I share
ours really freely too, but you're right. Because the template part is not the important part. The important part is where you personalize it, right? Where you insert the information, you've done a little research on them, you've gotten to know them better. That's the important part of it, not actually the format of it, although the format does help.
Right. Now, I'm going to pull up my email. If you give me 2 seconds for example, Kevin Rudolph. Hold on. Cool. Subject line is Kevin, love your music. No evidence of an ask there. These people are getting asked stuff all day long. You don't want to be grouped in with that. I said, Dear Kevin, next line. I'm sure you receive quite the abundance of emails, so this will be quick. Next line. I love your music and really resonate with it. I've been listening to you since I was 11. Next line. I'm 21 years old and have interviewed Rachel Starr, David Meltzer, John Lee Dumas, and I have Mark Manson, Dan Locke, Evan Carmichael, and Jordan Harbinger coming up soon on my schedule. That was before I interviewed them. I'd love to add you to this mix and create something truly special. Plus, I hear you have a new single coming out, which, is of course implying that we could promote it.
A little research. There you go.
Right. And fast forward, his new single has come out and we helped promote it. And it's, I absolutely love it. His new song is amazing. Next line, my show, Growth Mindset University, which is linked to Apple Podcasts. And, if he were to click it, he would see that we have over 180 ratings. I mean, 193 as of this current moment. My show, Growth Mindset University, is all about learning the lessons we should have learned in school, but didn't. The honor would be entirely mine to host you. Next line. Are you opposed? Getting to a no first before I get to a yes. Sometimes people are reluctant to say yes. Next line. Again, totally get how busy you are, so even a short reply would be great. I kind of guilt trip people, to be honest. Next line. Cheers to manufacturing amazing, Jordan. And then a social proof filled email signature with all my socials, website, like an actual signature, like me, my written cursive signature there, my JP. Even there's even like there's like this. There's an effect in Photoshop called like Painterfly or Painterly or something of this. There's this really cool graphic of me. So I'm no longer a faceless email. There's my face right there. He can see it. And then seen in Men's Health, Yahoo Finance, like the graphic of all those logos there. So that's really it, not sent from my iPhone as the signature.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I hope you appreciate me bearing and sharing all their.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
And it works because, you know, I reach out to the highest level individuals and I'll get 4 out of 10 replying and giving me a yes. That's a huge number, in my opinion, when you're reaching out to such high level individuals. So
yeah, I've never been turned down. So that's never happened in anything. We've had trouble scheduling some of my really top level celebrity style guests, but I've never been turned down. And so, you know, so that's what happens the more you go into it, the longer you do it. Mine is usually because I have an ink column associated with my name as well. So it's not just a podcast. I have an extra level of authority and so their PR firms are not tight with the gate at that point because it's a double publicity for them.
Right.
So,
yeah, there's a point that's a good point. I mean, there's a point too where you know, I'd never been, it was like the end of 2018 only. I'd never been turned down, but you know, I wasn't really reaching out to.
You weren't going as high. You weren't reaching to the stars. I love it. That's right. And you know, the thing is it's you're not turned down necessarily. They just don't usually answer. Like you're not getting to them because this team. Right. There's a lot of team involved, and so that's that's always an issue. Is like understanding how they're structured. You don't know it's almost impossible to understand it unless you have an insider. Like, oh, here's their publicity firm, or here's their manager. Here's how this works. It's really hard to find that out.
Right. So. It's so funny. I mean, you mentioned going to the manager and like, you know, sometimes you just need an inside man, you know, somebody who has been trying to get James Altucher for, apparently he commented on my post, you know, cause him and I are doing, and we had talked about this a long time ago, you know, but it's now 2 days away. Doing an in-person interview in New York City in front of a live audience. And, you know, I just posted something about it yesterday, and my friend who has a podcast said, I've been trying to get him for 5 months. Congrats, dude. And I was like, damn, that just fell into my lap. I did not even have to do a single thing. I had an inside man that just heard someone. He owns like part of this comedy club in New York City, and his chief of staff there happened to read my book and listen to me on another podcast and commented on someone else's Instagram post of me saying GMU is legit. And I was like, I read the book, love the podcast. And I'm like, thanks, dude. And he goes, yeah, next time you're in New York City, you have to do a book signing at Stand Up New York and perhaps do an interview with @Altucher. And I'm like, okay. So I messaged him.
I'm there like, making that happen.
So I was supposed to be in New York anyway this weekend.
You know, that happened to me though. It's like when you have someone else who says, this is legit, this is a good podcast, this is the thing, and they're insiders, they trust them. Right. That really makes a difference. So one of my podcasters had sought out and got an interview with Mike Michalowicz, Profit First. He's an amazing lecturer. He's got a new book out called Clockwork, which I absolutely love. And so I'm a fan. I've listened to him for a long time. He has Entrepreneurship Elevated as his podcast. It used to be called Profit First Podcast, but they've morphed it over time. And so she said, I've got a contact there. Would you like it? And I said, yes, please. And so she made an introduction for me, and I scooped her evidently because of my authority level with the column and offering to write an article, not just do the podcast. I got in a month before he's actually scheduled on her show. And she was like, how'd you do that? And I was like, well, it helps when you have that extra level of either insider introduction or authority. So good for you. Well, let's go on and do some more of our tips here. So what are some lessons, tips for increasing listeners?
Yeah, well, I mean, I post the snippet of the podcast on LinkedIn, a very compelling snippet of the show, very like almost like, you know, something very fast paced, and I will edit, you know, stuff out and make it really like perfect, the snippet at least, and, you know, put that into a video form and write a nice long post about it and get 10,000 views. And that's great, you know, and you know, of course, at the end of the post, it's like, oh, and by the way, you want to hear more of this
You want to hear the whole
conversation?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. You know, and content marketing, I guess you would call it. You know, another thing too is, and this is a much longer game, but just, you know, Facebook dollar a day ad strategy there. And, you know, you take your greatest hits there and you amplify them even more. The dollar a day is almost like an experiment. But it still gets you a little bit of reach, and then it's an experiment. You take your most successful ads and you boost the heck out of them. That's another way to do it as well. Yeah.
So, and so now you're doing a lot of production yourself. So how do you produce it in a professional way?
Yeah, so some of these tools are highlighted in Podcast University, but there's you know, I used to listen. I know we're on Zoom right now. I'm not
Yeah.
like I used to use Zoom for the first 65 episodes, and I switched to something called Squadcast, which is, you know, you record, you know, the audio tracks are recorded locally for each guest. So you get two lossless WAV files that are recorded locally for each guest at the end of it. And so like if you talk over each other or if someone's making noise while the other person's talking, you can edit it
So
out.
yeah,
And
2-track recording is available on Zoom now. It wasn't
oh,
always.
oh really? Does it record locally? That's
Yes,
crazy.
it records locally. So
Holy
yeah.
crap.
And
What
so
is
because
going
we
on?
used to use Zencaster and Squadcast, but it was too much tech for my clients. So
That's a
we were
lot.
so grateful that Zoom offered it. And I think they only offer it at their $14.99 level. Like, you know, so it's not on the free level of
Yeah.
Zoom. So if you had a totally free account, they don't allow that. But on the $14.99, which is not much per month to spend for
No.
that, they do let it, and it's only been in, I think, the last year that it's happened, and almost
I
nobody
mean,
knew it's
no.
weird.
I
Like,
had no
so
idea.
yeah,
I switched about 4 months ago. So it must have been
yeah.
within then. But you know, I'm gonna have to look into that. But Squadcast is pretty much what I use to
Yeah, it's a
seamless.
really good program. A
Yeah.
lot of people use it and they have great success with it, but it is a little tech challenging for your average person who just isn't comfortable with everything.
I don't think so. I don't.
I
Maybe
know,
I'm
but you're more
biased.
techie than others. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a web developer. You've got more
Yeah.
skills than some of my speakers and authors.
Yeah.
So you know, you gotta think about it from that way. So
Yeah. And
but
I will
you
also.
really
Yeah.
edit those 2 tracks into a better recording, and that's the thing. So what do you
Yeah.
use to edit?
You know, I keep it simple. I just use Audacity, to be honest. You know, nothing crazy. It gets the job done for me. And I will actually, I will never, no matter what, you know, I say this now, but we'll see what happens. You know, delegation is really important, but I will never delegate the editing because
Really?
because there are certain things. I mean, people don't think like me. They don't, uh,
Yeah. There's a
because
lot of creative and editorial choices that
it's not
happen
even,
in the
no,
editing
it's, I mean,
process.
yes, that too, but it's not even that. It's like when listen, I say stupid stuff. I say, I have my crutches.
Yeah.
I have my crutches that people don't even know. Like, I'll say, sometimes instead of, I'll say, and like, I'll stretch out the and I hate the way it sounds and people know that. And people
Yeah.
just like, oh, I don't like that breath there.
Yeah, I do this.
I don't like the way,
That's what
yeah.
I do. I breathe in.
I don't like the way I was running around my words there. And that's the stuff I want to edit out. So
Yeah.
I as soon as I'm done right here where I'm sitting right now, I sit down and I take, and listen, I don't have to listen to the entire thing back. Like I'm taking notes as I'm recording, like edit at 27 minutes and 42 seconds. And I kind of just know, like, instead of editing it 3 weeks later, I'd have to re-listen to the entire thing. I
Right.
just listened to it. I was
It
in
does
the
take
conversation.
longer after, and that's what most people don't know. So how long does it typically take you to edit?
5-10 minutes. But
See,
also,
that's good.
I plug it into, you go to this website, auphonic.com, auphonic, or however you say it,
Yep.
.com, and it's this automatic post-production. It levels out all the audio, brings it to the level of loudness that podcasts are supposed to be at.
Right.
It does all the noise and hum reduction if it's like an in-person one, and it works really well. You can even do multi-track production, and it's just like, it's really a really great tool. You can attach your intro and outro to it, and it'll mix it all up together. You can overlay them, and it's such a simple tool to use, and it makes the podcast sound primo. Like,
Yeah.
it's just really, really good. So
So that jump
really
starts you and gets you moving there. So now what's the best way to encourage engagement? How do you get people to talk back with you? How do you get them to send ratings and reviews? Because that's engagement as well. So how do you do that?
Yeah, that's people act like it's so hard to do. Holy crap. Geez. I mean, the first thing that I thought of when you said engagement was, I just started thinking about my posts, my social posts, and this works on LinkedIn. It's not really tried and true on other platforms, but I'll use an elaborate double binding question where I give people the illusion of choice. People want control. I give them an illusion of choice where both outcomes, though, actually result in a favorable outcome for me. So I pose a question almost, not every post, but almost every single post that I make. And I mean, it's like, gosh, it's hard to give an example with that. I mean, it's because it's different for every single post. I'll just say, like, I talk about a certain topic or say, like, let's discuss, at the beginning and the end of the post, I'll pose the question, and I'll say, like, what is, do you think X, or do you think it's better to do Y? And it's like, so rather than what are your thoughts? Question mark. You
right,
give
it's
them
open-ended. You're giving them something more specific. Yeah.
You give them an elaborate double binding question where your brain automatically just starts thinking, "Oh, I prefer that," and it's like, so okay, why not just say it? It's a great tool that I use in all forms of communication. I use it with my friends in text when I want to make plans. Like, I use it I use it all the time. I learned it from behavioral analysis. Chase Hughes wrote a book called Ellipsis Manual, The Analysis and Engineering of Human Behavior. Guy's a very smart man. This right here is a whole behavioral table of elements instead of the periodic table of elements.
Nice.
Really intense. He's a good friend of mine, and he introduced me to some very, very cool people. But in terms of like the podcast, though, getting ratings and reviews. I mean, okay, I actually ran a contest on LinkedIn where, because the social proof on my show, everyone wants to be on my show. Like, I get requests all day. Like, it's so, and they're, some of them are annoying, but some of them it's like, okay, I get it. I appreciate you, but I'm still not accepting it. You're right. But, some people are very inconsiderate with it, like, and entitled. I'm just like, no. But I opened it up one time, and I was giving away a slot on the podcast. All you had to do was leave a review and take a screenshot of that review from Apple Podcasts, like, before you hit submit, and comment it on the post.
Great.
Yeah, that was effective, and
that's good.
And of course it's in. Just create a good podcast too.
Have a good show to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've done how many shows now?
We're on 102 came out today, but we've got so many in the bank.
Congratulations, surpassing the magic 100 mark.
Yeah.
So did you do a big splash at 100?
No, it's funny. Well, Mark Manson was episode 99, and I started this new series called Follow Up Friday, and it's where I talk about the interviews, what I learned from the week. We just kind of get into a huddle before we go out and crush it again next week, and draw up a nice play for next week, and I give them a little preview to who's coming next week,
Great.
and
That's a
just
good.
really what I'm reading, what I'm having fun with, because it's really to develop the relationship with the audience. And my episode 100 was Follow Up Friday, about 5 days ago, and I forgot.
Oh no.
I posted it, and
Did
then
anyone say anything to you? That's when you know you really got it, when your fans are like, where the heck were you?
yeah, that's funny too. It's like, gosh, it's good because that happened today where like I messed up I didn't schedule, like the podcast came out, but the blog post that with the player and the show notes that went with it just wasn't it. I scheduled it for like later today. Like I just messed up,
I
and so
put
it's
PM instead of AM. Yeah,
and someone,
I've done
yeah,
that before.
yeah, it's how I've done it now twice in the past 4 weeks. It's kind of a problem, and but people have told me, so that's good.
You're like, oops,
Yeah,
I can fix that. Yeah, no
yeah,
problem.
right. I'm
So you're
mortified.
doing about 2 a week, right?
Now it's 3. It
Now
was
it's
2.
3. So you've amped it up even more. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I mean the third one on Friday is like 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay. So the last one for a bit of advice here is, are you monetizing your show? And if so, what's the best way to monetize it? Or what's the best plan for monetization?
Yeah, at the current moment, I'm not really monetizing it. I mean, I am in a sense that yes, my lead magnet is front and center. I actually like just added that into the new intro recently, Podcast University, and I also mention it in the outro. And I mean, like it's not like direct monetization, but
It's
but like
indirect. Yeah.
it's made it's made me money. It's taken me places. Like it's really incredible. It was a very long story, but I've had a couple of people approach me on sponsorships. I've had a couple of people approach me on just like making a LinkedIn video and paying me to do that because I get great reach there.
Yeah.
And but nothing crazy at the current moment. I'm not the monetization king right now. So it's a long game.
It's a long game, right? So that's maybe the plan. The plan is to have a long game, and if it's rewarding your business, your core business, or the business that you're working towards, why not? That's
Right.
monetization. Clients and leads are monetization too.
That's right. Like, okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So guests on the show, several of them have become high-paying clients.
See, there you go. That's a strategy in and of itself. So what makes your podcast really unique? Because there's a lot of podcasts in the growth business and mindset. There's a lot of them in, just business growth in general. It's a huge category. So what makes it unique and makes it binge listenable? That makes people just go from the beginning and listen to all 102.
Yeah, you could argue that yes, I do an interview show like so many people, and yeah, whatever. Okay, but I put a little education twist on it because my life's cause is education. I think formal education is a gigantic, tragic criminal scam. There's a lot that goes into that. I absolutely despise the system. Posted about it again today. I post about it every now and then. Those posts kind of blow up, and they do very well because it's a controversial issue. So
Right.
really, yeah. So really, it's and listen, I turn a lot of people off, but I alienate a lot of people very intentionally to really find my tribe. That's how you do it. You got to alienate some people. Someone asked me that the other day, like, oh, should I do a show about this or a show about this? I'm afraid if I do it about this, it's going to alienate a bunch of people. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's what you want.
You want to have a position, right? You want to
yeah,
have I was just talking, as I mentioned, I interviewed Mike McAllowitz, and he mentioned that specifically. He said having a slant, having an angle on what you do is extremely important.
right.
That having my bias come through is important because it helps people understand the value of listening again and again, that what they're going to get from you that they don't get from someone else.
Yeah. Here's the principle. draw your line in the sand and
Love that.
choose a side.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think about that all the time. And sometimes I even dramatize things and very intentionally. And I get on podcasts like this and I tell people like, this is exactly what I do. And I'm drawing my line and this is why I do it. And people still get riled up because the people that get riled up don't end up hearing that message. They're just ignorant. But anyway,
Yeah.
what was the original question here?
So just what makes it unique and bingeable?
Yeah. So it's all about learning the lessons that we should have learned in school, but did not. And each episode features a brand new lesson, and I extract those lessons. One of the questions on the form that the guests have to fill out is, what skill or lesson can you teach? I need to know that, and I need to extract it and show it and make it actionable throughout the interview. And part of it too is learning from the people we should have learned from in school but didn't, because a lot of times these teachers are just reading from generic McGraw-Hill PowerPoints.
I interviewed Dr. Larry Sanger, who is one of the co-founders of Wikipedia, and he's working on a new blockchain program called Everpedia. So it's like flipping what's going on in learning encyclopedias in the world. And he's a doctor of philosophy, right? PhD. And one of the things he said was just exactly that we are supposed to be able to count our textbooks and our news and our information like facts, but they're not. They're not neutral. And if they're not neutral, then where are we going to get neutrality? Where are we going to get information? And how are we going to go about doing that? And that's what he's striving to build there. And that's why he came on board with the Everpedia group, to try to build a better, more neutral information base. And I was like, that's to think you got a philosopher on your staff. That's a really cool plan for a business.
Yeah. Well, to wrap that up, like what makes it binge listenable? Listen, it's really good. And
It is.
I do so many hours of homework for everyone. I know, like I'm going into James Altucher on Friday and I know everything about him. I am, as far as I'm concerned, for the past month, I've been James Altucher. Okay. and you can tell, people can tell that I do my homework.
Done her homework.
So that's why I don't take requests, because I need to be absolutely thirsting.
You're right. Sure, it's right.
Learn from them, and yeah. So
that's what I like. If I'm curious, if I'm interested, then I'm going to take the interview. I'm going to ask for it, or I'm going to take it if someone offers it to me. But it piques my curiosity of something that I'm passionate about or interested in. I'll definitely do that. But this is the thing, is what I think that Jordan has hit on. And one of the things that I think makes Growth Mindset University such a great podcast is truly that you are a podcast listener. There's a lot of podcast hosts who are not, that I have come across, they are not listeners. And it makes a difference because you understand your listener mindset more, and you're a fan of the people who you invite on your show. And you've done deep research, you've done interview prep. So many people do not do any prep at all. Right.
Yeah,
and so they've never listened to your show. They don't know anything about you. Right. And so that's where it really starts to fall apart in the show itself, in its success.
Yeah. If you don't give a what, why would anyone else give a what? I can think of people distinctly in my mind right now who do not care at all.
So Jordan, before we wrap up, I have a good circulation. We also have a PR team who pushes this out. Authority Magazine has a high circulation rate. So who would you like on your show? Who's your big ask? And can we tag them here and maybe make that happen for you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Wow.
I'm sure you could ask them yourself, but why not put it out there, right?
Yeah,
maybe we can make it easier.
I'll tell you what, there's been some controversy with Tony Robbins in the past week, but
For those who don't know, there's been a big BuzzFeed expose on Tony Robbins, and it's quite controversial because a lot of his inside fans are like, this is not the way it works, and yet there are people going on record. So it's pretty controversial right now.
Listen, I don't know that I quite buy it. However, and I love him, but however, if he's done something wrong, then I'm open to him being wrong. Like, okay, but
people aren't flawless. They aren't without mistakes,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
But however, he was the pinnacle. Right now, it's kind of in limbo. I'm trying to think. Joe Rogan's at the top of my list. Tom Bilyeu's at the top of my list. There's, I have this list. Why am I like? There's so many. Hold on, I'm trying. Oh, Tim Ferriss. I'm looking up. I've already interviewed my favorite author, Mark Manson. That's good. Let's see. Vanessa.
See, so you have a bias to authors. I love that. I have
because I'm a reader.
What you're not seeing is like in front of me, there are like 4 bookcases full of books, and so see. Oh wow, yeah, you definitely have a lot of books there. If you're listening to the podcast, you can't see the video, but you can go to the blog post for this episode and take a look at the book library. You've got The Millionaire Next Door, The Millionaire Mind. You've got you got TEDx. You've got, and then of course you have Shel Silverstein mixed in there, which really pleases me.
See that?
Yeah, that is like one of my favorites from childhood, and my daughter just you got Rich Dad Poor. She can't get better than that. So you got a bunch of great books there. I love it. And
there's even more. There's more floating shelves.
There's more everywhere. Yeah, I have a whole entire like bookcases downstairs, and it doesn't really reflect because I did after a while out of convenience for space started to shift to a Kindle, and so like I have hundreds of thousands of. I swear I have thousands of titles on my Kindle right now, and so at all times. So I used to fly to China all the time, and that would give me 13 hours to read. And, and so it was awesome for me. And then you'd get there and you'd be exhausted and you could sleep all night and then you'd be able to work the next day. So like, that's how I did it. But I couldn't carry enough books on the airplane because I read really fast. So that would like be 13 hours would be like 13 books. And so that would just be way too many books to carry with you. So, and I had started like leaving them in hotel rooms and places, but that I was like, that's enough. That's how I caved and got a Kindle for the first time. So, so glad to have you on the show. So glad you are so well read. So glad you are sharing your knowledge. So glad that you are out there pushing Growth Mindset University and really helping others jump on board and flip the switch and start thinking about new ways to look at the world, new ways to develop their own mindset, and having a creator's mentality, Jordan. That is what has impressed me the most about you. You're out there cranking and creating, and that makes for a great show and a great host.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words. I do appreciate them.
So everyone, you can find Jordan we'll have all the links to him. We'll have everything about his bio. We'll have links that he's referred to in the show. We'll have that in the show notes for this episode at feedyourbrand.co. So you'll be able to connect directly with him from there. And if you'd like to read the follow-up Authority Magazine post on him, that will also be linked in there once it's live, which usually follows this podcast. So you want to check back again after you've already read it. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been Tracy Hazard on the Center of Influence from Feed Your Brand.
You've been listening to the Binge Factor podcast. For more information on podcasting and videocasting success tips and tactics, please go to thebingefactor.com. And be sure to listen to our other show for podcasters called Feed Your Brand. If you'd like to be interviewed on this show, as well as featured in Tracy's column, please go to thebingefactor.com/guest and apply.